Well, hello, listeners, and hello, Nicole, funny person Cox.
That was a terrible introduction.
It was shit ass.
You can do better than that. I feel like you're
Come
going
on,
to press stop and go again.
raise the bar. Let's turn this around.
All right, you ready for a joke?
Okay.
I've done deep research this morning, 30 seconds before we press record, to find one that was very topical. Are you ready?
Okay.
What happens when a flower blushes?
Oh, you're making it topical. I don't know what happens when a flower blushes, Coxie.
It turns rosy.
Oh my gosh! All right, so we're joined on the podcast today by a fellow podcaster who may have just got really excited because I think he's going to easily outrank us in Spotify. Joel Barnett from the Landscaping Podcast. Welcome to Tradies in Business.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here because I listen to your podcast every week and I was really looking forward to seeing what their first joke was. So it was a ripper.
You're not really looking forward to it now, are you, mate?
Joel, yours is the only episode I've found a topical joke for. I tried. We had a lawyer on. I tried to find a lawyer once and they were not good.
Lawyer jokes are not really the sort of thing you want to share in front of a lawyer.
No, and then we had an accountant on. They weren't very good either. So I just tend to steer clear. But you've presented a great opportunity for me to shine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Complimentary. Now, speaking of shining, mate, we don't do bios, but I have to admit I did a bit of digging because when we booked this episode via our people, I thought, who the hell is this bloke? He's obviously a landscaper. Why are we talking to this guy? And so I went and did a bit of digging, which I don't normally do much research, mate. And I'm feeling a bit like, I don't know, less than here, Joel. You've won awards, mate. You've been on TV, got your own podcast. What's it like to be so famous?
It's a bit of a burden sometimes, I must say. I can't go to the supermarket without people noticing me. It's hard work.
And you're a good sport. I love it.
But a lot of those things they're all mediocre results. Like I haven't actually won anything. I just I get second or third and just get commendations, that sort of thing, but don't actually win. So
typical Australian tradie talking himself.
I know.
The second he's got an opportunity to talk himself up.
Yeah, I only got a silver medal. It was pretty ordinary. Unless you're getting gold, it's nothing. It's win or nothing. Is that how it is, mate?
Sometimes, yeah. That's like if that's what you're aiming for, then yeah. I've heard a podcast I think with Grant Hackett on there, and he was talking about how he would just, if he didn't win, it was a failure.
Yeah.
So it depends on what your goals are, but so that can be the case if you get second and you think you were good enough to win, then that's how it can be sometimes.
I must admit, we had a pretty tight run last year on the podcast awards, and I was devastated by the results of that one. Now we did enter the race with Mark Boris, and I thought it'd be him and us toe to toe at the end, but it wasn't. It was somebody totally left field altogether, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a government-funded podcast. But anyway, we're not going to talk about the judging. But it is a particularly Australian cultural thing, I believe. We were chatting with someone recently who said it's very different when you look at football or sports in Australia. If you don't win the flag, then you're a loser. It doesn't matter that you made the 8 or whatever your chosen sport is. Whereas in the US, they celebrate the wins, the number of wins they had for a season. Even if they don't actually win the premiership, they're still celebrating how many games they won for the season. They really do have that celebrate the wins, no matter how small, culture. Whereas for us, it's like either you got the gold medal at the Olympics or you're a complete loser. Doesn't matter that you're a silver or that you actually made it to the Olympics in the first place. Well, it's like climbing a pretty big mountain. How do you find that goes for you, Joel? Because you've entered a few times, and we're talking about the Melbourne Flower Show. And how many times have you entered that, mate?
We've built 8 gardens there, but only 3 of them I designed. So there are other ones where other people designing them. So the first year I designed one, we got bronze, and then the second year straight after that we got silver, and then the third year we're in the same category, and I didn't design it, but we built it. and that won gold. So then I realised maybe I shouldn't be designing because that was the thing that was keeping us out. So, then we came back again and went this year and got silver again. But yeah, I think I'm pretty big on thinking it's whatever your goals are. So if your goal is to compete at something and then you do it, then that's awesome. You should be happy with that.
Yeah.
But if your goal is to win something and you don't, then there's always room for improvement, I think.
Absolutely. I'm really intrigued by this whole concept of designing a short-term garden, which that's my take on what you're doing for these kind of flower show awards. I presume, okay, maybe you can fill in the blanks for the uneducated, i.e. me. I presume you're not putting the plants into soil. Are they all just potted and you kind of make it look like they've been planted out? Is that the idea?
Exactly right. Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing when after you actually see them in person. Because I went to the garden show before I'd ever built one, and I had no idea that that's how they were done, because everyone does it so well that it looks like it's a real garden. But yeah, it's all temporary. So all the plants are just sort of sitting in their pots and they go back to the nurseries, and it's all a temporary structure. So it's not built how you would normally build things in a real life situation. And a lot of the material, as much of the materials as possible, is borrowed from suppliers, so that you're not having to pay for as much of it, and then it can go back to them. But I was smart this year with we've just built a new house as well. So a lot of the things I designed into the show garden were going to be used at my house. So that's where they've gone to.
Very clever.
Yeah, there were some things I was thinking, this would be awesome for the show garden, but it won't work at my house, so I'm not going to do it.
Now, did that cost you you didn't design it though, the gold medal garden. I just wondered if, taking that mindset into it was a help or a hindrance, mate, in terms of getting the gold.
I reckon it helped. Because there were things that I did put into the show garden that I didn't want at my house, but I'm going to have to, now I'm going to make it work at my house because I've got it. So, yeah, there's a bit of swings both ways.
Joel, how do you come up with the ideas? Like, is there a brief or a theme that everybody works towards, or is it totally free choice and you've got to come up with the entire concept?
No, that's the benefit for me about this type of thing is there's nothing to follow, so you can design whatever you want, and I think that's what gets the best results, because people are actually doing something that they love. So some people like doing native gardens, some people do more natural or Japanese gardens, and some do modern ones. So whatever your passion is, I find you actually obviously do a better job of designing that and building it. So that's one of the good things about not having any specific theme to follow.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like a landscaper's dream, actually, to be able to be creative and do what works best for that environment. And yet, if it's like, speaking from my builder's perspective, often we're pigeonholed into creating something that might not necessarily work with the block, for example. The block of land and the aspect of the house might be a bit off, and you do your best to negotiate and navigate the clients towards what will drive the best outcome, but sometimes they're very firm on what they want. And so you kind of fall into working within the parameters that they set for you. I imagine landscaping is very similar. Yeah,
and I've only really noticed that recently, talking to a lot of designers on my podcast about they're designing for the sense of place that the house is and the surroundings.
Yep.
So some people are wanting a real, modern straight line garden when their house is more suited to a natural native garden. So you want to design the garden based around the house, whereas when you're doing a show garden like that, there's no house, so you can do what you like, and it doesn't matter how they all relate to each other as well, because they're all different gardens.
Yeah. You kind of want it to be different to the neighbours so that you stand out.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, I think this would be so fun.
It is, but unfortunately someone has to pay for it, so it's expensive as well.
You do the hard work, and then I think the disassembling would be the worst bit of all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you get 9 days to build it, but then you get 3 days to pull it down. So, and it's not fun because you just want to get it. When you're building it, it's hard work and long days, but you're actually creating something, so something to look forward to. But when you're pulling it down, you just want to get out of there as fast as possible.
I feel the same way when I go camping.
Yeah.
I don't mind the setup because I'm getting everything sorted, put the barbecue here and chairs. That's a good spot for that. But then the pack down, it's usually raining, blowing a gale. And I just want to get the damn thing wrapped up and on the back of the car so I can get home.
And then back to work.
Yeah. So interesting with that little thread about, I guess, building the garden you think is best, or designing the outcome that you think is best, but balancing that with what can sometimes be competing interests, whether it's client's budget or what they want, or perhaps you're working with, a bunch of television producers who have an idea about what they want to see. How do you go about balancing those two things, Joel? Do you have particular negotiation techniques, or what's your trick?
Are you talking about in like real life situations?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to work with. I'm very. I work with clients pretty well. Like there's some architects who, it's their way or the highway kind of thing. Whereas if the client lives there, so it's their house, they can have what they want. Mm-hmm. As the professional, you need to tell them if you think something's not going to work and make you recommendations, because that's what they're paying you for. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's what they want. So, not everyone's got the same taste. So they might, even though they might have picked me as a designer, so that could be because they like my style and I recommend something. If they don't like it, then that's fine with me. I'm not too precious about things like that. So, there's always things you've got to work around that you don't necessarily like, but it doesn't bother me too much, thankfully.
Joel, did I see on your website that you used to work for the company that you now own?
That's correct. Yep. I started as an apprentice with the company.
Wow. Can you tell us a bit about that journey?
Yeah. So I started with another guy in my first year, and I worked with him for like 1 year and 3 months, and then started with Instyle then, and then got qualified and worked for a year or two as qualified. And then I never had any plans to go out on my own, but then I got a lot more responsibility the more experience I got. Yep. So I felt like I was running the jobs and doing everything. Mm-hmm. Obviously, what is actually like running a business is completely different to what I thought I was doing. So I had no idea what I was doing, but I thought at the time, this is easy. I'm doing everything anyway, so I might as well go out on my own. So I told my boss that that's what I was going to do. And then actually I had the business name and business cards all worked out, and it was a horrendous name. It was going to be called Gardens by Joel. So it worked out well that didn't go ahead. And so my boss recommended, he said, hey, what do you think about taking over the business? So we set up a plan. I think it was like a 9 or 12 month plan for me to gradually take over. Mm-hmm. And then I've run it since then. So I worked. So that was in 2009 that I took over. So he had the business. I think he started the business in 2003. Mm-hmm. So he had it for 6 years and I've had it for 14.
That's incredible.
Wow.
There aren't too many apprentices. I think many wish they would have an opportunity like that, but there aren't too many that are gifted an opportunity like that for you to jump in and take over. Does that person that you took the company over from, did they retire? Did they go and start something different, or what have they done?
So he used to go up to Queensland every year for holidays. So then they saw that as an idea to go up there, like to move up there and start the business up there. But he ended up just working for, I don't know if it was commercial, but he was doing landscaping, but not running his own business up there. So
part of the cool crowd, he moved before COVID to Brisbane. Yeah. There's no room for anybody anymore.
No.
Yeah, it's a nice place to be too. Went up to the Sunshine Coast. So
yeah, nice. Lovely. Joel, from that, you have your podcast. Tell us about your podcast and maybe help us understand why you started a podcast. We all have different reasons for starting a podcast.
Yeah, I don't have a specific reason other than I love listening to podcasts. So I've always listened to podcasts, and there's been a couple of landscaping ones, but not a lot in Australia. And then I was listening to one who had a plant lady on who I found fascinating, and then it made me think of a fella I know in New South Wales who's also a plant nerd who'd be fascinating to hear. So I thought I might contact this podcast and recommend him as a guest.
Yep. And
then I thought, I don't know how to get in contact, and I don't know what their process would be. So I thought I might just interview him myself and start my own podcast. So then that put the idea in my head. So I was going to do all the episodes outdoors.
Yeah.
Crazy idea when you think about how you want the audio to sound. So but I went to New South Wales. So I'm in Victoria. So I drove up there for a weekend and I interviewed, I think it was 5 or 6 people who were up there. And yeah, they were the first few episodes. And then, I was originally going to release it every fortnight. So I didn't have a lot of pressure of having to do an episode every week.
Yep.
But I love doing it so much. I just have did it weekly.
That's fantastic.
And I've done it, since then. So it's been on just over 2 years now.
That's fantastic, Joel. A lot of people started off, like there's a real influx of podcasts at the moment, but it's nice to hear that journey and the way you've become so passionate about it that it is a weekly thing. And longevity is really hard with podcasting. We see a lot come and go really quickly, and because it's hard work and you underestimate how much work there is involved and trying to find guests, and there's quite a bit that goes into running a podcast. So it's great to hear someone who's passionate and has found enough to keep that longevity there. Perhaps you can tell us some secrets about finding cool guests.
I like the way you do it is by getting someone else to do it, because that's
absolutely
the only thing that I hate about the podcast is having to get guests on.
It's hard.
Yeah, and it's just. And that's what, and especially I've said this to other people who have got two hosts. Like, it's hard enough for me to work out a time with the guest, let alone two of you and the guest having to work out the right times.
Totally.
So, and it's, and there's some people who you ask them if they want to come on, they say, yeah, sounds good. And then they just ghost you after that.
Yeah.
There's a lot. That's, literally, like, I absolutely love everything about the podcast except having to get the guests on and organising that.
Oh,
there's been times where I couldn't, not that energetic about wanting to chat, but then once this podcast starts, then it's just, it just flows and I love it again. So
we've had some guests that appear really dry. I think some of the real classics like self-managed super and accounting and HR, and I think, oh my God, this is going to be the most boring conversation ever, but they're necessary and they never are, because everybody has their own journey or story, and if you can delve and tap into that, I guess that's where the real conversational aspect of a podcast can come from. That's certainly one of my favourite bits, but it's almost a competition now. Every time we think a guest is going to be boring, they turn out stellar, don't they? So I'm not going to tell you, Joel, whether we thought you'd be boring or not. Because
Coxie thought you were going to be boring as paint drying, mate.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm a better
host.
Gardening.
It's going well so far.
It's the same with like when you interview people who've got tens of thousands of Instagram followers compared to ones who've got hundreds. And the ones who've got hundreds, you got no idea about, but they end up having an amazing story. So it makes you don't ever know what you're going to get.
No, that's so incredible.
You're talking about us, aren't you, mate?
A few more than 100, but not many.
Joel, have you had any surprise guests? Often I think we book people thinking, oh, yep, I know how this is going to roll. I know what they do. I've read their story. And then you get to the end of it or even halfway through and it's like, holy crap, I just did not see that coming.
Yeah, there's been a couple like that. Like there was one, a fella in Colorado. So he's got over 100,000 followers. But after chatting with him, I just, I got off chatting to it and told my wife that was just an amazing chat. Like, it was just awesome, full of information. It was entertaining. It was everything you want from a podcast. Yeah. And then just recently, a fella in WA, he was recommended to me by another guest I had on, because at the end of every episode I asked who would be a good guest to have on the podcast.
Great question.
So she recommended him, and that was like episode 121 or something, and that's the most fun I've had on a podcast. Like, I try and keep them under an hour, and that one went for like an hour and 15, and I just wanted it to keep going. So it was a bit awesome to talk to. So, yeah. Nice. And again, I don't know, he might have 3,000 Instagram followers or something. I'd never heard of him beforehand.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just great to chat to, because you want, entertaining and information is what you want in the perfect episode.
I could share a few jokes with you if you like.
Another landscape related one.
Yeah.
I'll find your page or I'll create one for you.
Dear, oh dear. All right. So obviously you also run a business, Joel. Has the podcast helped you with the business?
It's impossible to say, but I reckon it probably has. It's like, because it makes people seem to think I'm a bigger deal than I am. Look, where I'm literally no different to any other landscaper who could start doing a podcast. It's not like someone came to me and asked me to do it. So it definitely helps with the appearance of it, and I find Instagram is like that as well. Like, businesses look bigger than they are. But yeah, so I think it just helps with a bit of I don't know what the word is, but basically looking more important than what you actually are. Whether that translates into work, who knows? But I'd say it might play a small role if someone's deciding over, person A and person B. If this person has a podcast that's got 100 episodes, they might look like they're more of a established person in the industry.
Yeah.
And which I am, though. I've been in here for 20 years, so I do know what I'm talking about most of the time.
You know what? I reckon all our listeners are just doing the maths right now. They're thinking, okay, this Tradies in Business podcast has been running for 8, nearly 9 years. So these guys must be really freaking old, because Joel's been doing his business for 8 years. Did you say 8 years? No, 20 years.
20 years,
and he's got 100 episodes. So that makes us really, really old, Joel. Thank you for sharing those tips to our listeners so they can figure out how old we are.
I best pay up my funeral bond.
It's all right. I've got you back. It's okay.
Yeah, good on you.
Joel, do you feel like it's opened any doors for you? So maybe I'm alluding towards the fact we know that you've been part of working on the block. Is that an opportunity that came through the podcast, or have there been other amazing opportunities like that came about from either contacts that you've made or recognition through the podcast?
No, the 2 years that we were on the block were before I started the podcast. I think they were 2018 and 19 possibly. But yeah, they were like, they weren't the last 2 series or this one that's coming.
Yep.
So 2 before that. So I don't know if it has. I did get invited to judge at Floriade, which is like a garden show in Canberra.
Yep.
So they're for the first year this year, they're doing some show gardens. They haven't done them before. So I'm going to be going up there to judge that. So that guy messaged me from the podcast Instagram page. So that'd be, I would say, 100% because of that.
Yep.
It's not a paid gig. I'll be paying my way up there. So it's not really, you're not really benefiting out of that, but it's just an awesome experience to have. Because I've never been there before. I've seen photos of it, but so that'll be cool to see. So nothing necessarily like that, but yeah, we've started doing designs a lot more in the business now, and I think that would help build that side of the business as well, and just sort of get the name out there a bit more.
Yep,
love that.
Definitely within the industry as well. So a lot of people within the industry now know who we are, and there's like every week there's someone who messaged me saying, "I just discovered the podcast," so then I've got all those episodes to go through. So even though you'd think everyone in the industry would know of the podcast, there's always new people coming along.
That's
it's surprising how it's not slowly, because that indicates that there's some kind of success measure, and there's not, but it still surprises me how people find the podcast, at what stage of their business journey they find it, what are they looking for when they find it. All of that information is really fascinating. Do you have a typical listener for your podcast?
Mostly it's people within the industry, but it's also surprising how many people who have got, like, they're just like clients, for lack of a better word. Like, they're just people who, doing their own garden, or they like gardening or business or that sort of thing. So I've literally had someone at the supermarket say that they recognised me from it, and they were just a client, like not one of mine, but they were just a person who's not in the industry.
Yeah,
just someone there who wanted to embarrass her daughter by saying that.
It's the weirdest feeling, isn't it? Being recognised. What do you say? Like, how do you? I find it really challenging to be humble, and because inside you're a tiny bit excited as well, but then it's also a bit embarrassing. And then what do you say, and how do you validate the fact that they've taken time out of their day to say g'day? And it's just a really weird situation to be in. Yeah,
I've had it a few times from the block as well. So, and the first time it happened, I didn't handle it well. So I was just at the hardware store, and I was looking at the shelves and heard a guy behind me saying, "Oh, there's this guy from the block." And I turned around thinking it was one of my mates there just taking the piss. But then he wasn't, so I just kind of had a half smile on my face and then didn't know what to say, so I didn't end up saying anything. So then he probably thinks I ignored him. So yeah, I've improved the more it's happened. It's not like it happens a lot, but yeah, I've learned to get better at it.
I still find it really awkward. It happened to me only recently. I think I was in a homeware store and somebody approached me to let me know that they follow me on Instagram, and I was just really quite humbled and didn't know what to say, and really made myself look like an idiot and walked away with my tail between my legs. It's just such a strange concept still. But I
had to move to Tasmania.
Well, I understand, Warwick, with all of your fans
following me around,
just beating them off every time.
Became unbearable.
I really want to jump in a hole, but I'm not going to.
No one's ever recognised me in public, which suits me just fine. So, Joel, the block. Now, we have spoken to a number of people over the years who have done stuff with media, wanted to do stuff with media. There's a bit of an idea that it's kind of like, I don't know, slaying the golden goose. If you get a gig on one of these programs, I don't know if you're bound by, confidentiality or anything, or if that time period has passed, mate. But what's it actually like from a business owner's point of view? Was it a positive thing? Did it do anything for you? Like how did it roll for you?
The reason I went on there is because I used to watch the show and loved it, and just was curious to know what it would be like to be on there.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go on as a contestant, never applied or anything because I didn't have anyone who would want to go on with me, but I was keen to see what it's like behind the scenes and if it is exactly like they do portray on the TV show, and found out that it was it's actually harder than what it looks like on they make it look easier on TV than it actually is, which I don't understand why they do that, but because you think they want it to look hard, you think it'd be the opposite. So yeah, that was a pretty cool experience just to see what it was like on that inside. Like for example, we had the very first week we were there. It was during a week where there was Easter and Anzac Day. So there was 2 of the days of that week were a public holiday. And then I think the Anzac Day was the Thursday. So the Easter Monday and Anzac was the Thursday. And then, so we had to build the garden. Well, there was a courtyard. We started at 1 o'clock on the Friday, and it had to be finished on the Sunday. So we had like a day and a half basically to build it, and got it done as well. So the designer had to make heaps of changes to the design because originally thought we'd have 5 days, and then that whittled down to a day and a half. But yeah, it's an awesome experience as someone who's wanting to see what it's like, and like I like working physically hard and long hours. Like I've run a couple of marathons because I like pushing myself and doing that sort of endurance stuff. So that's a good way to do it when you're actually working. But I went to it with a mindset of I wanted to win. So I knew that if the more I charge, the less the clients have got to spend to make an awesome garden. So I charged very little so that we had an increased chance of winning. So a lot of people go in there thinking they're going to get paid their normal rate, and you can do that, but it doesn't work out. It's not a good result doing that. If you want to get paid your normal rate, you're better off just staying at home and doing your normal work.
Yeah.
Far less pressure.
Yeah. So you obviously had heaps of inquiries come in after doing that, mate?
That first year we had a few, but so we're in Geelong, which is an hour and a bit south of Melbourne, and we had 3 inquiries about wanting to build a barbecue that we built on there. So I told them it was going to be $110 to come up and do a quote, and that was enough to scare them off. So they would have been a waste of time, basically.
Yeah.
But again, there's just a lot of things that I've done in the business, like going on the block and doing the garden shows and doing the podcasts. They all little bits that add up to building the profile. So I don't know exactly where the inquiries come from, but we're booked out for 12 months and knock back work, multiple jobs a week. So it's all, we don't do any other advertising, but pay for a lot of unique advertising styles like that.
Yeah. Which I imagine in landscaping, it's a very creative field. In my mind, anyway, my perception is it's a very creative profession, and it's a bit like being an artist or a musician. You need to have a great portfolio so people can get a feel for, is this what I want? Is this the artist I want to have come and play at my wedding or whatever it might be? And so there's a lot of personal values and feelings and all that sort of stuff comes into it. So I love the way you look at that as sort of building a portfolio, not of social proof, I guess, but here's what we're capable of. So I think that's a fantastic approach to marketing. It's all those little bits that come together, kind of like your projects. All those little bits come together to make the overall picture of, okay, well, who is Instyle and are they for me?
Yeah. Social proof is the word I was trying to think of before. That's what all this kind of stuff builds. And I often refer to what we do as art, and whether that's just cutting in paving or doing a miter on a step. There's a lot of little things that all make it look awesome. And that's something I've found talking to early designers, like designers who have recently started their business. Something they struggle with is not having these projects that they can advertise all built up. So it's something that takes time to build up that kind of portfolio. But then once it does, it's like a train that you've already got this stuff coming, and then it keeps increasing the quality of it, and then you can keep advertising that and building it better and better. So just, you need a bit of patience to start building it. But then once it starts working, it's pretty cool.
Great marketing tips there at a time where people, we're having some really interesting conversations. There's one side of the fence that is really feeling the financial tug right now with their clients, and their phones have stopped ringing. And then we've got the other side of the fence who, like you, are booked out. We've got plasterers booked out for 7 months, and we've got landscapers that are booked out for 12 months, and we've got builders that are booked out for 2 years. Like there are these two polar opposites in the marketplace at the moment. So I think that focus on marketing right now, everybody should be marketing. And Joel, you say you don't do any advertising, but you're actually doing a bunch of advertising, just really uniquely and in a style that works, pardon the pun, for you particularly. So I wonder, these were choices that you have made because you wanted to find out what it was like to be on the block, and you started the podcast because you loved the idea of listening to other people's podcasts, and it gave you an opportunity for that creative outlet. Have you ever pieced it together like in a marketing plan to understand that, okay, these are my forms of marketing that are tying together? Or is this just been a really organic thing like it sounds like it is?
No, it's actually been a plan that I set about doing. So it was so awesome when I actually started working the type of projects that we've been working on. So in 2012, I'd been running the business for 3 years, and my daughter was, my first child was born in 2011. And then we had a job booked in for winter, which was like $100,000 job. And that was the first one that I had for myself. Mm-hmm. So I was knocking back all this other work because we had this big one coming up. And then that guy pulled out like 2 weeks before he was supposed to start. So then I had to scramble to get other work.
Yep.
And my daughter was 6 months old at the time. So I thought, it's too risky working for myself. I'm going to go and do something safer. And I went and worked at a bank part-time.
Okay.
It's a natural progression, obviously. From
Absolutely. Yeah. I can see how.
Yep. Totally.
So I was there for 2.5 years. I was part-time to start with, so I was still landscaping on weekends and days off, and then worked my way up into business banking. And then I saw people coming in, running their own business, having no idea what they were doing, and I thought they were making good money. I thought I can do this again. So initially, for those first 3 years, I was just taking on any job that came along, saying yes to everything. Didn't matter what it was. So I had no plan at all. Mm-hmm. And then after working at the bank, I thought I'll get back into it, and I want to work on the high-end projects. So to do that, I think I needed people like the designers to know who I was.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do these things, like I applied to get onto the garden show.
Yep.
I went to a lot of the landscape and Victoria meetings in Melbourne. So there was a lot of Melbourne designers who were there who were doing jobs in Geelong. So anyone, when they think of a landscaper in Geelong, is going to think of us. So there's a lot of things I was doing like that, so that everyone knew that we existed. Because I knew once we did those jobs, that our work was good enough that then it would just snowball on.
Yeah.
And then we got an $80,000 job, and they just started building up and up. So it was pretty awesome actually having a plan, and then it actually works how I thought it would.
Fancy that.
Yeah.
That was an underhanded attempt from Coxie, which worked out really well.
It did. To
just point out to our listeners that you need to have a freaking plan, and obviously a job at the bank to be good at landscaping. Mate, I'm still stuck on that. So how long had you been a landscaper before you got the job at the bank?
So that was 2012, I think, or that might have been 2011 or 12. But so I've been about 7 years, I think.
Okay.
Landscaping.
Tell me about your resume going for the job at the bank, or did you just grease someone's palm, mate? Not taking away your own skills, Joel, but
one of my mates is high up at the bank, so he got me the interview, and then he gave me some tips on what I should say, and then got in from there.
Who you know?
Yeah.
Which again,
a lot of situations I knew once I get an opportunity that know I'm the right person. So I knew, because I love numbers. I get just a natural thing. I'm good at basic numbers, and my two sons are exactly the same. Yep. They're always ahead of where they should be with basic maths. So it's just something that we're born with, and I enjoy it. So I knew that once I got in there, I'd be good at it. I just needed them to give me a chance, and then prove that I was.
Love that, mate. And obviously, it wasn't a flash in the pan. You worked your way up into business banking and everything. So you had the goods. But I have been hearing a few stories like yours lately about who you know. It's about who you know, or who knows you, not about what you know. You could be the best landscaper, the best plumber, the best glazier in Australia, in the world, and it doesn't matter a lick if you don't know the right people and move in the right circles.
Yeah, that's another good thing about Instagram and actually pushing yourself out there and, you know, letting people know the type of work you can do. Because, like I say, you could be doing the most amazing work in the world, but if no one knows about it, then you're not going to grow as much as you could if you were sharing that and showing people. And it's not a matter of saying, you know, look how good I am. It's just showing this is the work I do. If you like it, good. If you don't, that's fine as well.
Love it.
Joel, how does a like for numbers translate to what you do in landscaping? Because for me, one's really creative and one's very rigid.
No, it's actually really important to be good at numbers, to be a good landscaper, specifically when you're setting things out. And it's one of those things like anyone can do, like paving on a job, but you're at the next level if you're working out. So you've got full pavers and things are lining up. So thinking of where a pool should go so that the pavers are full off the house and they also return around the corner of the house as well. So, yeah, being good with numbers is a real skill to have within landscaping. And you use a tape measure every day and it's got numbers all over it. So it is handy to be able to do quick maths.
Does it make you good at quoting profitably as well, Joel?
No, I'm terrible at that.
Why is that, mate? Let's open that can of worms a bit.
It's because if there was 3 of me doing the job, we would make a ton of money and I'd be rich and I would only have to work 2 days a week, but there's only one of me and my employees don't work as fast as I do. And so it just takes such a long time to understand that and understand what they're good at and what they're not, and what they're slow at. And then when you that's a negative about being booked out for 12 months in advance is when I realized I need to change something, it takes 12 months for that to take effect.
Yes.
And then by that time, something else has changed. So then I've got to change things again and it's another 12 months. So there's a good, there's good things to not be booked out so far in advance. Like there's good reasons to not be booked out so far in advance, because if you change things, then you can profit from it earlier.
We've certainly seen a few trade businesses get caught out with materials pricing and labour rates and everything, hitting them pretty hard over the last 12 months. So, it's a great example, mate.
Yeah, but it's something that now the jobs, when they're coming on now, I'm starting to make money on them. So then it's just something you need to keep refining.
Yeah.
And there's some people who are natural tradesmen and natural business owners, and I'm definitely more of a tradesman than a business owner. So that's something I've had to learn on the fly, as a lot of people do.
Joel, I think the truth is most tradespeople are better at being tradies than they are at being business owners, specifically because they're not taught, right? When you're able to gather the skills and learn, then you can create a different outcome. But right in the very beginning, like you, most tradies think, oh, this can't be too hard. I'll give it a go.
Yeah. I'm already running this other idiot's business.
Yeah. And it doesn't quite turn out the way they think it's going to, because nobody teaches them. They don't get taught enough within their apprenticeship to understand what running a business really looks like. It's something that we talk about with our clients. They shouldn't be afraid of helping their tradespeople learn what goes into running a business. There tends to be a lot of fear around that because, well, what happens if everything I teach them they take and use? What happens if they get halfway through learning about running a business and realize this is too hard, I don't want to do it, I just want to be an employee? You might have the opposite effect. Is running your business something you share with your team, your key team members?
I don't hide it from them, but they don't really, there's not that, doesn't interest them that much. So there's some people who would love to know that information and some people who just want to know what work they need to do, and that's what they do. So that's something else I realized just from experience, is that some people want to run jobs and some people have got no interest in running jobs as well. So, and you can't make them do what they don't want to do, because no one benefits out of it that way. So I'll share, I'll tell them when we make money on a job and when we lose, and I put the quotes on it. We've got an app where we share the plans and everything, so I'll put that on there. So there's no secrets I would keep from them, but they don't have any interest in knowing it.
Nice.
Tell us about your team, Joel. How many have you got? What and what's it comprised of?
So it's just me and 2 qualified guys at the moment. So one's been with me for, I think it's 8 years. I don't know if it's coming up with 9 or it's just ticking over 8.
Yep.
And then the other one has been with me 6 years. but he's about to leave because landscaping is too hard on the body.
Yes.
And because he's 6'4", so it's obviously you got to lean over a bit more than what I do, standing at 5'9".
I'm built for landscaping.
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
I'm even shorter.
yeah. We're like a mountain goat. We've got low center of gravity.
Yeah. Built for handling.
Exactly.
Now I'm going back and mentally thinking about all the landscapers we work with, and some of them are very tall, and some are
bloody
not
tall.
So tall. Oh, one is not so tall.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, he's probably got less pain.
Yes.
In some parts of his body.
Looking to put on an apprentice, but obviously, like I have a good one on, but then he decided landscaping's not for him either because it was too hard. So it's something like maybe I need to stop, like realize what's happening if people are leaving because it's too hard. Try and make it a bit easier, but it's also some things you can't make easier.
Part of the job, isn't it?
Yeah.
Joel, you talked about good tradies versus good business owners. What do you think are some of the key differences between the two?
I reckon planning is that can go into both, but if you're like to be a good tradesman, I know that's probably more running a business, really, planning. So the more I put time into actually planning something or planning a job or doing cash flow forecast, so if you've got money in your account, why it is and if it actually is there or not. So the more planning I do like that, more thinking and forward thinking, the more I realize this actually makes things a lot easier.
Yep.
But then you've got to actually get the work done. So that's one of the challenges of doing both, is not doing either of them as well as you could.
Yep.
So I reckon, planning is the most important part, and scheduling of everything as well. And that can help with efficiency when you get materials on site and that sort of thing, knowing what you need for upcoming projects. Like people employ people to do that as part of their business. That's their whole job is just organising everything. So you can understand why people struggle doing that and doing work on site as well. There's not enough hours in the day.
That's
no,
right.
there is not, but you can create a lot with a good plan, can't you?
Yeah. And that's like I want to have schedules. Like I'll have clients ask me, when are you going to start our job? And I'll just literally tell them I've got no idea when we're going to start, because I don't know when the guys are going to call in sick, if it's going to rain. There's just so many different things that can happen when you're relying on other subcontractors as well. Like one of them might pull out late, so then you've got to push everyone else back. And but when you do a schedule and it works, it's the best thing in the world. Like, you can just see money falling into your pockets. You can make so much money because everything's going so well. But then other times you can make a plan on the weekend for the upcoming week, and then someone calls up Monday morning at 8 o'clock saying this is changing. So then it just throws out the entire schedule.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes it a bit deflating.
Oh, absolutely. Can be very frustrating, that's for sure. Joel, back to the podcast for me. I would like to know, is there one guest that you would really love to get on your show?
No. So if I hadn't have had him, it would be Paul Bangay. So he's one of Australia's most well-known garden designers, but I had him on. The only guests I want on, that I would like to have on in the future are people who are, awesome to have on, just enjoyable to chat to.
Yeah.
There haven't been too many that aren't like that, thankfully. Yes. So, but there's no big names. I tried to get Jamie Jury for my first episode. He didn't get back to me. And then at the garden show, he was there and he came to chat to me about the garden. So I told him that I messaged him to see if he'd come on. I didn't ask him again, but I just said, you didn't get back to me. So it was a bit awkward.
Well, I'm disappointed you didn't say it wasn't Nick from Tradies in Business, mate.
Yeah, it was the wrong answer.
Surely we'd be on your list.
Obviously, yeah. That's
all right. Well, it's been good having you on the show. Actually, I'm gonna hit you with my one question, mate. If you had 1,000 tradies in a room, what's one piece of advice you'd like to leave them with?
To enjoy what you're doing, because I think it makes such a massive difference if you enjoy work, because everyone has to work to earn money so you can live the rest of your life. So if you can find something like I've done and find a work that's actually like a hobby, then it helps the rest of your life because you're just happier all the time. You're not dreading going to work. So if you're doing a job that you don't like doing, try and find something that you would like doing.
Nice, mate. Don't be afraid to make a change, hey?
Yeah.
You could get into banking. Who knows? Sky's the limit. Righto, mate. So any upcoming garden shows you're entering or TV programs you're going to be starring on? What's anything exciting in the wings for you?
No, the last 3 years we've been asked to go back on the block, like just by other guys who are on there or the contestants. But I've said no every year because it's something because to do it well, like I want to, it costs money.
Yep.
So I won't be doing that ever again. And the garden show is the same. It's very expensive for me to do it with a small company. Like if you've got a big company, you can go have guys working still.
Yeah.
We were just all 100% committed to that. So I won't be doing that as big as what we did this year either. So nothing coming up. My goal for the coming couple of years is to make money and be profitable rather than just having fun all the time. So I'm trying to have a blend of both if I can.
That's a good goal.
Love it, mate. Love it. All right. And if people want to go and stalk you, mate, what's the best way to do that?
Instagram at Instyle Gardens would be the best one to go. I quite enjoy being on there. Like a lot of people tell people spend too much time on social media, but I don't watch TV or do much else. So that's one of my hobbies as well.
Just build gardens and doom scroll.
That's it. Yeah, have fun doing both.
Nice, mate. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, Joel. You weren't boring at all, mate. So, no, Coxie, you were wrong.
As always.
But great chat, mate. Some awesome gold nuggets in there too, buddy. I really appreciate your time coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me on. As I said, I love listening to your episode every week. So thanks for doing what you do.
You'll have to listen to this one and tell us what you think.
I will. Because when I listen to mine, I don't remember things that got said because I'm thinking of the next question or something like that. So I'll always listen back.
Nice, mate.
I know the feeling. Thanks, Joel. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for being on the show.